think for me, being exposed to so many miniatures all through my life growing up, because this was, you know, part of my life and what my dad did. This is an entire section of the downstairs house. It sort of overexposed me to them. I didn't think about them as being special. I didn't think about them as being magical or something that created something so special and created an entire world. But it's so clear and obvious that it has influenced my life and really helped me form an imagination, and you know, I used to spend hours down here. So my dad built all of this over about 20 or so years with a little bit of help from his dad and no help at all, I don't think, from me. And as you can see, it really is a masterpiece of a British railway, of a model British railway. Today, what we're going to be doing is having a look at how to make a miniature house. And we're not starting off with a complex one that's 3D or a box form or anything like that. We're just going into a facade sort of house, which really is one of the ones that you'd have up against a backdrop. So you'd probably have a painting in the foreground. So one like this, for example, or one of these ones on the right, just here, one of those. These are facades. So as you can see, there's no back to them. We're just going to be making something like that for today. And hopefully you guys can put it up against something and really start to look at creating a setting. After today's tutorial, I'm hoping you guys start really looking at how just using your creativity, using your imagination, and starting to create something of your own that's quite special. And all you're going to need really for this is a pair of scissors, glue, pencil, color pencils preferably, a black pen or a fine liner, some pegs and paper clips, and finally some sort of cardboard box. And that could be anything from a box of shapes, cereal box, anything like that will do. Just a bit of cardboard that we can use to create your structures with. Setting is a really important part of a narrative. A lot of people don't think about setting as being as important as it is to filmmaking. So when we study things like Lord of the Rings and we look at the amount of miniatures that we used simply because special effects then weren't as good as they are now, and how perfect these miniatures were and how special they were and how effective they were at creating the story and actually putting us in the setting. So as you can see, this is all within a room, and we'll get a shot in a minute which is just going to be a bit more of a long shot of the entire room and what the whole room looks like instead of these close-ups. These shots I'm trying to get for you now are really just showing you guys how we can try and work in a way to trick the audience into thinking that these are real scenes and this is what it really looks like, and we're trying to make the audience suspend their disbelief and believe that this is a real setting, and that's what I want you guys to try and do. So as you can see, all of these shots are just trying to pull focus and to try and get these close-ups of the miniatures to really show you guys how intricate the detail is, but also to try and trick you guys into thinking that it isn't just downstairs in someone's house, that this is the real world. So if we do sort of have a look now at this long shot of the entire room, we start to see that it all really is just a cutout. A lot of it's made of foam and it's been painted on, and we can see that the cupboards around the outside and the model planes and all these kind of things, and the switches and all the backdrops that go behind it, because it's just a facade. The whole thing is just so that we can get those close-ups and we can lose ourselves within what is a really fantastic world. And so hopefully today you guys are going to get something out of this tutorial that my dad's going to do for us, showing us how to put together a house. And I hope you guys enjoy it, because it's about having fun and it's about being creative.
We might do the sides there. Then you have the roof there, and then you'd have the windows. You'd have a set-in door there at the top of perhaps a set of steps. Window here, window here. Sometimes it's quite good fun with these sort of things to put one window at a slightly wonky angle, and perhaps even put it so that somebody really looking hard and thinking to themselves might wonder how that window's there and the other window's this much higher, and how did they, what's going on inside of the layout of the house, you know what I mean? Because you do get them like that. This time I'm just going to mark the cross pieces like this, and now because we're doing it this way we can actually get quite intricate with it and put a lot in, some windows. That's the door, just give it the doorway. Now, when you've got to this stage, this is a good time to be actually setting out the facade, the front of it, and you'd often get a lintel above the window to stop the bricks all falling down on top, and a lintel underneath, and a bit of a frame around the window, lintel again, and you'd usually have all these lintels the same, but quite possible over the years the building's been modified and an extra window put in, and they might not have had the same sort of lintel the next time around. Staircase. When you've got old staircases you often find they're worn down in the middle. Now the windows themselves, they need blacking in, so I'm just going to use the other end of the pan and do the big areas. Then I'll finish it off with a blunt end, because this has got to be very fine. This is where you want the one that I did earlier, isn't it? Here's one I did earlier. And pull one out of the box, it's already done. Now what I haven't done, you should have pulled me up on this earlier, is I haven't put any curtains in, but if you wanted to, you could do as I've done there and put some curtains in. This is going to be an abandoned house. If you want to get really, really sharp, you can actually cut these little squares out and put a sheet of cellophane behind them. Then you've got real glass. But then you've got the problem of what can you see through it? And do you want to start putting 3D super detail behind the glass, or are you just going to put a piece of cardboard behind it, black cardboard or something? In which case you might just as well have blacked them in like I'm doing here. You could even, if you wanted to get fancy, you could perhaps get some silver paint or white paint and put a few flashes on the black to give an impression of reflections. Or you could have a light on inside. What if you put cellophane in and a little light inside, and you might get the silhouette of a cat on the window ledge or something. Or a person's face. That would be a bit scary in an abandoned house. The outside the door we can put a bit of a wooden frame up. And where are we going to put the door handle? Where do the door handles go, Doug? Can you left? Left. We've decided to go left. Are they left on our door over there? So it's on the left. So there's the door handle there. Now, let's start doing a bit of colour. Nice texture. This is sort of raw cardboard. So if you were using your cornflakes packet, you'd obviously use the bit without the colouring on it.
You'd use the inside.
Yeah, use the inside. That's right. And this person's gone colour coordinated, and they've painted all their window frames the same colour. And then under the eaves, put like barge boards running up here, like that, and they'd probably be in the same colour as the windows. And then, now what colour shall we make the lintels? We could make the lintels a slightly different colour, couldn't we? They would be stone lintels in this case, so I'm going to go with a grey. And then here's how we get our sense of depth, is that underneath all of these we'll put a shadow. Because these would stand out a little bit, you'd have a little shadow, a tiny bit of shadow under there. And then you might get a crack in the wall. But with a house like this, you'd almost certainly have a crack in the wall. And they tended to follow the lines of the stone, so there'd be something like that, I would expect. This would be a particularly worrying crack. And you might even have a bit here and there where the cement renderings come away. Then you're left with the brick behind it. So you've got the brick behind it now. And the brick might be. Then we put our bricks in. And the bits where the render's fallen off. Oh, cracks there around the window brick. Now if you notice, bricks are always staggered, aren't they? So you get this sort of thing. You don't need to be too religious in making the pink too hard, because you would get bits of plaster sticking to them even there. So that's that. And I'm going to put a bit of shading around the door as well. So where the door is there, you'd imagine the frame being pointed out, so there'd be a shadow on wherever you think there might be a shadow under the doorknob. Shadow it in. And then now we've got that basic idea, you might just want to bulk these lines up a bit. A few nail holes here and there. Sometimes the nail would split the wood and then you get a straight line here and there. A bit of grain in the wood. If you're using a bit of license here, you wouldn't probably at this distance see a lot of grain in the wood, but see what we're starting to get the effect. And then something you always get in wetter climates, if you're modelling wetter climates, is moss and green. So you'd get a bit of green under here as well. As you can't really overdo this. All around the bottom there'd be damp areas of damp. Perhaps a bit of a leaking gutter here and there, all down the sides of the windows where the water's run off the tops. Now we don't just cut that out, because we need tabs. We need to fold back to give it a sense of depth. We're going to have sides on it. Now I'm going to cut those out. Now it's a good idea to shade in the areas that you want to remove, so you know which side of the line to cut to on all this. This stage is getting quite interesting there. So I'm going to cut it out here. That's a remove, and here, and here. These ones are I'm just going to be bending back as far, so I'm just going to score gently along them, not go all the way through, but just score gently along them. We don't need to put too, that's going to stand pretty much like that as a house, and we're just going to put the roof on. You don't really want, you don't need to have any detail in the sides, because this is going to be standing against almost right at the back of the scene in front of probably full houses. So you don't want to draw too much attention to what's going on at the side, so we'll just have those there for now. And now we're going to make the roof that goes on top. Gently scoring it there. And with this one, we're going to, before we glue it on, we're going to put some tiles on. And this is very like the bricks. Some people go to all the trouble of making paper ones and overlaying them, but I think that's a little bit over the top. And like the bricks, they're going to be staggered. And if they're slate tiles, which is what they have in England, slates are slightly, each one will be slightly different colour, quite an attractive look. So we can do that, or you could do the sort of clay tiles you'd probably have on your own roof at home in Australia. You can buy a product called brick paper that has these already printed out, but I find if you make things exactly to scale, they're very fine. You can't really see them, you can't really make them out very well. Just do the odd one a little slightly different colour, give some effect. Some would be older than others, some would have been replaced. Some would be a completely different colour. Then we'll go back to perhaps a pink for the ridge capping. That's the first one across the middle there, that's a ridge capping, so that might be a different colour, give it a bit of interest. And then we could go a green tinge for the rest of it. Then I'm going to get a bit of glue. I've already got my devices for clamping. Close pegs and paper clips. Paper clips are good because you can get them very close. Bend that over. This will give it a great deal of strength. And the great thing about these models is that they are surprisingly robust. I really like cardboard for that reason. If you made this out of plastic and dropped it on the floor, it would shatter into or come apart. But you'll find, because it's cardboard, it's so light that you drop it and usually it survives the fall.
And what kind of glue have you used?
I'm using any paper glue really, but I use what's called a PVA glue. It's a water-based glue, and that'll take a little while to get off. If I'm in a real hurry, I'll use super glue. Super glue is instant, but it prefers sticking your fingers to anything else. But you've already got an idea of what it's going to look like. We can make some little gussets as well to reinforce it. Now the gussets are like this. You really want a triangle with flaps. So put that out. Just scoring these always just score the flaps so you can bend them down. Turn that round. Now you can bend those in. And there's an excellent reinforcement for in there. That'll hold that rigid. Just going to take a little bit off the inside so that they will actually come up. Otherwise those two points will clash with each other and not come up all the way then. Once again, a little bit of PVA. In normal, it's relatively cool today, but in normal Australian weather conditions, this stuff goes off very quickly. Nothing like super glue, nothing as instant as super glue, but you'll find if I hold that there for a few seconds, especially with this nice soft cardboard, take to that fairly quickly. And then I'm going to make another one out of this. You might need to use a ruler with this. I've been doing this for quite a while, so a reasonably accurate cutter. It's probably helpful for you guys at home to use a ruler, and that's going to fit in there just perfectly. Not a bad guesstimate that. Squeeze it in so that they do actually want to stay and not spring out. And put a bit of PVA on, just a tiny bit. If you do spill this, clean it up straight away because it can be quite interesting to get off some surfaces when it's set. And that will give that enormous strength. And by now, I expect these will be just about set. And there's your house, your low relief house, not quite standing up properly, but
And so now that the house is finished, we're going to start looking at how we might actually put it out. The dog knocked my arm while I was filming. Good on her. So we're thinking about where we can put it in the house, what we can put in front of it in the foreground to make it actually fit into an environment. And so I'm not expecting it to be absolutely perfect, but I'm thinking, where could I put it to sort of trick the audience? Now you could have a real background and a real landscape, or you can think about having things like they actually did in films, which is have a matte background of a painting, or in this case a photograph. So this is down on Loch Ness in Scotland, a photograph I took, and so having this house in the foreground of it sort of gives you that, but obviously we're just in a backyard. Alright, and so you need to think about where you can put it in your house to take a photo to show me and to really, trick me into thinking that you're actually there. And that might come down to the way we light it. It might come down to the filters you put over the top of the photo to make it blend in a little bit more, because maybe the colors don't quite work. We really are looking at, what can we do, where can we put it. That obviously doesn't really work because the rocks are a bit too big, but that rock in the foreground that I've sort of dug out from out the back really does sort of suit it a bit better. And as you can see, we're just in the house playing around with what we can do. Maybe if we put it into black and white, it blends in a little bit better. The fact that it's a still image in the background, that water's not moving, doesn't really help us. It might be better if the water's moving, and that adds a bit of movement. So if you could blue screen it and actually put some footage behind it, if you do have the editing technology to do that, you're going to have a much nicer look. And maybe in a couple of weeks, I might be looking at getting my dad to give me a hand, and we might do a boat and look at how we could edit a miniature boat onto water or something like that. I mean, that would be a lot of fun. So your goal really is to, once you've made this, put it somewhere that's going to trick the audience and make us think that it actually belongs there. So don't just put it anywhere. You need to think about what you're putting in front of it, thinking about what goes behind it. So once we'd finished that, Dad decided he wanted to add some extra things, so you just sort of went through and added a bit more moss with a green pen. Just sort of added that and smudged it a little bit with a bit of moisture, just to make it really smudge and blend in. But once you've finished that, and sort of maybe he's blacked in the bricks a little bit more, you can really add as much as you want to this, and you can certainly make it your own. You can make it however you want it. It doesn't have to be a house, it could be anything you want it to be. But what we're trying to do is think outside the box, and how we can create miniatures in an effective way to really be interesting, but really what we're aiming to do is trick the audience into thinking that it's real and that it actually exists. And anything we can do to make that better is our goal, and that's what we're trying to do. So I hope you guys have a go at this and you enjoy yourselves.